Hey, I believe we are just about ready to go live. So as soon as Lance confirms that he is with us, then we will go ahead and open our meeting.
Welcome to the August 28th, 2023 City of Wichita Affordable Housing Review Board. I'm Spawn Collier, and I'll be serving as your chair today. It's 3 p.m., so let's call the meeting to order. Could staff please call the roll call?
Yes, Yvonne Collier,
Yes.
Valerie Black,
Yes.
John Todd,
Here.
Miranda Pinner,
Here.
Stacy Meyer,
Here.
Brad Snap.
Here.
Thank you, Brad. And I believe that Anthony is out today. Thank you all. Our next item, I believe, is approval of the meeting minutes from July 31st, 2023. I know I've already had one contact about an amendment that needs to be made on those. I think that we had Miranda as having voted, or I'm sorry, Valerie is having voted yes.
I did.
Okay, Valerie said yes, Miranda said,
I have said yes as well.
okay,
Where it is now.
okay, and so we will change that to yes. Are there any other changes or?
Haven't asked you.
Are we going to talk about the affordable housing fund program plan?
Yes, yes.
On the
later.
agenda.
Because there were some issues that were brought up the last meeting. I really didn't get clarification on.
Yes, that will be part of this meeting. So were there issues in the minutes?
I say doing these things. So
Um,
we're not, this says that we've already agreed to this. That's what I'm saying.
I think the minutes were just showing the discussion of last week. I think we still have to.
Yeah, it's on the agenda still for this week for consideration, but it was considered at the last meeting that this inclusion in the minutes is something that was addressed. But yes, here is 5 on this meeting agenda after other items after the minutes. Sorry.
There are no additional changes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes with the necessary correction.
All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign.
Did we have a second?
Just, yeah.
Second.
Yeah.
You're fine. Well, again, all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign.
So.
Motion passes unanimously.
Then our first presentation this afternoon, and this is just a presentation, but part of the work of this board is going to be reviewing applications for the Housing Development Loan Program. We have received one application, we're not bringing it today. And so what we wanted to do was to kind of give you a preview of what we're going to be looking at in the future with this program and kind of what staff's review will look like, and also what this board's work looks like within that. So Sally will share that with you.
Thank you, Sarah. So the Housing Development Loan Program, that is a program we've run for many years out of the Housing Department. It's funded with the Home Investment Partnership Program. Those are direct subsidy funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And we receive an annual allocation based on congressional appropriations. For 2023, we'll receive just about $1.7 million. So historically, we've done mainly single-family infill development with this funding under the Housing Development Loan Program. But we have done 2 conditional commitments for multifamily rental housing in the last couple of years. And currently, we have applications open on our website. We have $400,000 made available for rental, multifamily rental projects, and $600,000 for single-family home ownership. For those rental projects, we're looking at a $200,000 maximum per project. And for the single-family home ownership, it's $90,000 maximum per project. And those applications are open, and we continue to take applications until all the available funding is committed. And that list of committed projects can be found on our website, as well as the applications for both of these programs. We talked about maybe printing those and bringing them for you, but they're very long. So we thought, we'll give you the link. We're trying to not kill so many trees, but please take a look at those application forms. They are available at that link, and Sarah's going to send the link to you after the meeting so you can take a deeper dive. Right? So using those funds, once we receive an application, and as Sarah mentioned, we've received one application since we posted those. Those applications have been live for a couple of months, and so far we've received one application recently. So the staff will go through the process of making sure that the application is complete. All of the necessary documents are there, all the sections are filled out, that it's accurate. There are tables in there related to funding. We want to make sure that they actually tally to what you say they're going to tally. That the zoning is appropriate, and if not, it's indicated at what the plan is to address zoning. We do a cursory environmental review. That means a quick review of high-level things where we try to identify if there could potentially be an environmental issue. We don't go into full environmental review because that costs money, right? But we have staff do a cursory. Are they, close to railroad tracks? Are they close to highways? Are they in a floodplain? Those kind of things. We make sure that they're addressing the match requirements. So with the home program, there's a 25% match requirement, and how the project proposes that they're going to meet that match requirement. We do a cursory underwriting. We do not do a full-fledged underwriting. An underwriting of a project takes many hours. We do a quick review to go, does what they have here, does it kind of make sense? Are there any huge red flags as to what they have in their development costs or their operational pro forma that's for rental? We're going to take a look at what they've put down as their past experience. And see if we identify any potential conflicts of interest. And then if they're certifying as a community housing development organization, we're going to look at those documents to see. And in your packet, you will see a handout that talks about what it takes for an organization to get certified as, and you'll hear us refer to this as CHODO. I've heard other communities call it a Cheeto. Same thing. I kind of like the Cheeto, but and so those are the things that staff will be reviewing before presenting that complete and accurate application to this board for review, right? We don't want to give you things that are incomplete or don't add up. And that will be this board's opportunity to review those applications. And then you will vote whether or not you want to make a recommendation to the city council to fund or not fund the project and why. Okay, so this is just one of the programs that you saw in listed as within the purview of the Affordable Housing Review Board. A little side shoot from this, you may have heard some information about Home ARP. So Home ARP is home funding under the American Rescue Plan Act that was made available to the city, specifically to provide resources to vulnerable populations such as homeless, domestic violence victims, and victims of human trafficking. Any applications that we receive, if we don't have a project that is successful as our own project, and if we ended up issuing an RFP, would come to this board. Just, they are two separate programs. They fall under the same umbrella, but since there's so much talk right now about the other one, I didn't want you to get confused. So the one we're talking here is a program we fund every year as part of our consolidated 5-year consolidated plan, as well as our annual action plan. So any questions on housing development?
How many houses, well, 600,000, how many houses left?
By $90,000 approximately. At $90,000 a pop. Yeah, you're looking at,
90,000, yeah.
right? We're providing up to 90,000 in gap subsidy on each property. Right. So you're talking,
That's about 90.
we have some that can do it for less than that, particularly Habitat for Humanity comes in less than that because of their sweat equity. So we might get 8 properties out of 600,000. Any other questions?
Then is there additional 20% down payment?
That comes from a different program. Yes, still funded with home funds, but not in the housing development loan program.
Topeka campus.
I'm sorry,
The homeownership aiding,
that's ours, not Topeka.
Topeka.
No, that's ours. And there are specific reasons we layer the homeownership 80 with these housing development loan program projects, that it eliminates the repayment period on the development subsidy and to the repayment on the down payment assistance. Because if we didn't do that, most of these families would be upside down almost immediately. The same problem we had with the Affordable Housing Fund, that if you don't layer in that down payment assistance on these homeownership projects, the affordability period is based on then on the development subsidy, which could be 15 or 20 years. And when you're putting in $90,000 in development subsidy on a house that appraises for 100, guess what? They end up upside down real fast. So there is strategy as to why it's done that way. Any other questions on housing development?
How best to understand it, we make a recommendation and then the city council actually approves or disapproves.
So I think on those, you would make a recommendation to fund or not to fund. Everything would continue to roll forward to council with that recommendation, either direction. Council could uphold your recommendation or they could overturn it. And so we would, I'm still looking at how we would document, whether it's just pure documentation or with minutes or things like that, but.
Do you know who those buyers were in advance or the case of the city broker?
Jen, because there are multiple requirements in meeting HUD housing counseling, et cetera, the developer has to have an affirmatively fair housing marketing plan, and they find the buyers. And that's partially why we are also looking at that potential conflict of interest. Brad, were you piping in?
I'm sorry.
I thought I heard you start to say something.
No,
Nope, okay.
I've lost the view of the room though. But I can hear, okay.
He's echoing, so. We'll go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Will there be an advance of this already, a rubric or something to guide our decisions?
Yes, the application has scoring criteria, and we're very transparent with that. Those who are applying know how many points in each category. You'll be evaluating their responses to see how many points you would grant them under that category. So yeah, that's on the applicant part of the application.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Thank you. So again, we know that we have one application on hand already, and so it is our hope that we'll have that ready, and we'll try to get that out at least a week prior to the meeting so that you have time to review and, you know, pencil in scores, think about comments, questions, things like that. So I wanted to also do a presentation. This is not an action item, but to talk about public housing disposition, because this is an item that is not actually this board's, but it interfaces with the work of this board. And so I wanted to just explain a little bit about where we are so far with this process and how that, where the work of this board intersects with this project. And so I think since 2018, we've been in the process of working to sell 352 single-family housing units that are currently part of the public housing stock. And those will be sold into the private market ultimately. We are going through the Section 18 application process, which is a HUD process. It is extensive, great deal of documentation that we're rounding up. Certainly checking all the boxes to follow the process to ensure that the current tenants are protected. The disposition, all the applications and then all of the eventual sales must be approved by both the Wichita Housing Authority Board and HUD. Actually, I should say the applications must be approved by both entities. And then the sales will be approved by the Wichita Housing Authority Board. And that is the council plus one. And so that's, the council is technically the one involved in this directly. So as we have looked through the housing stock that we have, we're using multiple methods of disposition. And so this is accessible for a variety of end uses ranging from home ownership to rental, developer partners, et cetera. And so this is really a once in a generation opportunity to add affordable housing stock to the private market. Many of these homes are very much at the lower end of the price range. And so we're hoping to see affordable home ownership for first-time buyers. We're hoping to see affordable rentals that are high quality. And so many opportunities here. And so we are disposing of these in groups in part because 352 is a lot of real estate to hit the market all at once. But also we're looking at commonalities between the groups. We're looking at end goals. We're looking at environmental considerations. And so our first group, we actually have received HUD approval to proceed with sale. Group 1 is 37 scattered site units. These are all outside of the central investment area that many of our programs that we work with on this board will be focused on. Typically, there are no concentrated public housing areas in these neighborhoods. These are embedded within neighborhoods around the city. Generally, they have higher appraisals and they are being sold through the real estate office. So I've got a screenshot of where those homes are. And so if you look at both the black dollar signs and the white dollar signs with purple, those are the location of those 37 units around the community. Truly scattered site. And so these could be, it's my understanding that we're leaning toward a best and highest use as a criteria in evaluating proposals. And so these could be picked up as investment properties. These could be home ownership. These could be rehabilitation. I know John shares about the rehabilitation loan opportunities. These are basically, they must sell for at least the fair market appraisal value, but there are very few stipulations, certainly no affordability clauses. Group 2AI and Group 2AII are groups that you all will see quite a few times as the board. These are 66 units in 2 clustered areas, one in the northeast neighborhoods and one in the southwest part of town. These are both within the established central area, and they will be sold via a request for proposal process. So when we say RFP, request for proposals, so we will develop a framework that we'll put out there and try to receive proposals that really look at targeted neighborhood investment. The proposals may also look at use of the Affordable Housing Fund resources to try to rehabilitate and meet the end goals for these properties. Really, the goal of these 2 groups is to test what it looks like to put strategic and targeted investment into neighborhoods. And with the 2 very different neighborhoods, there's opportunity to test what it looks like in different areas. So many of our programs are kind of one-off here, there. We help with the rehabilitation, we do a new home build. There's some concentration, but this is a unique opportunity. And so the board will be reviewing not the disposition applications, but the funding applications. So these are the groups 2AI right here and 2AII. So 2AI is really between 25th Street, 26th Street, and between Minnesota, Ash, and Hyatt. And as you can see, almost every house in that area is a housing authority. And so we want to be very intentional about the outcomes in these neighborhoods. We want to ensure healthy mix of ultimate uses. We want to ensure that things are done wisely. And again, this other area is Houseville and St. Clair in Southwest Wichita, along with 3 other homes that are kind of nearby but slightly scattered. So, and these will be 2 groups that the board sees many times. Group 3AI, Group 3 is actually 140 houses total. And so we are filtering down what we're doing based on what we're seeing in environmental conditions, what we're seeing in terms of commonalities. And so our first portion of Group 3 is 51 scattered site units that are within the established central area and investment area. This application is still in development. And so this is a current screenshot of those 51 homes. So this again will be a, presumably, actually before I'm not as familiar with where we're going with them, so I'm gonna not go forward on that.
Can
Sure.
give some general directions on where these are.
Sure, so here, kind of down the middle of the screen is I-135. So what you're really looking at is the lower edge is probably going to be the central area, kind of running up hillside, up toward the northeast area.
Those sound like a floodplain.
No,
I believe these are not the floodplain units.
they're in their own group.
Then group 4 is another group. It won't be a group that comes before the board. But it is a group that we have some particular end goals in mind. This will be 14 rehabilitated units, 13 of which are in the South City area. One other is a unit that had fire that we are rehabilitating to sell. These rehabs actually are an opportunity to capture federal dollars that are granted to the housing authority each year. And they are a user lose, so if we don't invest them, then they are clawed back. So we are rehabbing these 14 units prior to disposition. So the homes will be move-in ready. Our goal right now is affordable home ownership. And so we are actively reaching out to partners, lenders, and others and would spread the word, please. We are looking for qualified buyers who might be interested in these units. One thing that makes this set of houses unique, these numbers on here are numbers of bedrooms. And so homes in this area are much higher bedroom counts than many that you find in these price points. And so we're seeing this as a tremendous opportunity to offer affordable home ownership in a fully refurbished home to people who are at low and moderate income, household incomes.
Expand on the East and West Street, that's north.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
Main
actually,
Street.
let me click out of this for just a moment and I will pull up the full map.
Oh, South City.
So Hydraulic was the street right here. And yeah, if you don't mind, I will minimize. Actually, you know what? I don't have that link here. I'm logged in on this computer. I would be glad to send you more information on it. It's something that gives a better framework perspective.
And I just had a quick question on with regard to group 1. I know it was mentioned last meeting that a postcard was being mailed out. Was that already started with all the realtors?
We have not sent that out.
Okay.
That's certainly where we're going. And so that will go to, I believe, every realtor in Seneca County. Let me get back to where I was. Okay. And so it will announce 37. I believe of those, a portion are currently vacant. And so, and then there are a portion that currently have tenants. And so we want to do right in terms of notification and tenant assistance throughout the process. So you probably won't see all 37 hit the market all at once. We will probably phase even within that group, but it will be the full 37 that go as part of the group.
You know, this timeframe of when that would start that group 1 to.
Vacant should hit in the next few weeks. The occupied, at least 3 months, we're required to give a 90-day notice.
Okay.
Other questions on the public housing disposition process, and especially as it relates to the work that you all do here?
Question on AI. Are those the homes that are also being used by the police department for training?
Not specifically, when they want to do a training exercise, they will reach out. It's different house every time. It really depends on what they're trying to do. We also let Evergy, they've done a couple of things where they do like an emergency call and, well, we use, but it's not of any particular area. It's-
And you're not saving those houses for them?
No, no. No.
Yeah, this is an everything must go.
Yeah, okay.
No special uses on, other than housing on the other side.
How does, oh God, I apologize. Has any attempts to try to increase the amount of homeownership for the lower income community? What type of marketing efforts have you done to help, especially when you're going to the ones that were fully model? Because I've noticed that those that are specifically Section 8 voucher holders, it's very hard for them to find the 4, 5, and 6 bedroom homes. So I thought, I know that there is a program for homeownership through Section 8, but there's been like, what, 2 people?
We have 5 current.
5?
5 current. Yeah, that one, the reason, that one's really challenging. And if you know a bank willing to participate in the homeownership voucher program, there aren't many that like that, because the subsidy that comes along with them is only for 15 years unless they're disabled. And so that oftentimes banks are like, wait, you want me to give a 30-year mortgage on, but yet you're only providing assistance for 15 years. There are some that will do it, but it's also that challenge of having low enough income to qualify for a voucher, high enough income to be able to secure a mortgage, and then having a bank that's willing to work with the fact that the subsidy is only there for 15 years. I love the homeownership voucher program. It's just really hard to implement.
I was curious because I know I've worked with a lot of investors and there's creative financing approach. And I thought that perhaps with that bridging the gap, that could be obtained. Build up that program, so maybe I could just send an email and try to figure out.
Sure.
Something.
Yes, and any efforts to try to get people aware of that opportunity and qualified for it would be exciting. Anything else on, yes?
On the group forwards, had the paper here a while back, advertising, taking 14 houses and they're looking for bids. That's part of this group. And the money that affordable housing review, they won't, we'll start using the money as a work, it's supposed to review. Okay.
Yeah, again, that is capital fund, which is,
And the plus I talked to council member, the 75% of those is what they want.
That's the target. That's the goal. We would like to see a mix, a 75-25 mix. Yep. There's 45 total houses in that subdivision. So 13 of them is the group we're talking about right now.
you can see the ones we're actually discussing right now is colored, the pink and black ones. But the vast majority of all of those properties in that section are public housing units.
Yep.
So one at a time.
So, excuse me if I'm getting really basic, but these applications are going to be reviewing are for funds to work on these houses that have not been disposed of yet. So they're basically putting in an application that they don't, okay.
Yeah,
I see.
not these.
Here.
Not these. No,
Not these,
no.
but,
Yeah.
the applications is to receive funding to do work on these homes, but they don't know which homes it will be yet. See, that's what I know I'm missing.
We're gonna get there.
Okay.
When we get to the Affordable Housing Fund review.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
I actually was reviewing,
What?
preparing for this earlier. And I'll have that question a little ways down the road.
Stacy, did you have a question?
That's
Well,
fine.
I was thinking the other 180 or so units, what's been.
We'll be moving those through different groups. So we have some environmental issues to go through, some, yeah. The 20 in the floodplain still have me baffled on a decent solution for those, but the rest we will be taking off in groups as we go.
Do you think it possibly would take a good year span, maybe 18 months to?
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially because as each application gets approved, occupied units get a 90-day notice. So we know we had our first application approved, so that's good news on group 30. Yay. Only took 7 months.
You mentioned about talk like 20, so what's the, they're floodplains. So how does the flood insurance anymore?
There's still flood insurance that's available. The majority of those homes in the floodplain have significant structural damage in the basements and foundations because of where they're located. They're a really challenging group, but you can't then use HUD funding to repair them either. They would be outside of the realm. The idea, oftentimes what's happened in the past is they'll tear it down and then build up the ground to build it higher. And all that does is flood the neighbors, which is not an answer that we want to have either. We also don't necessarily want to go through and just bulldoze 20 houses in a neighborhood. So that's why we're really challenged on the 20.
Councilmember Johnson mentioned maybe a attempt to take out the floodplain.
There had been talk about the Army Corps of Engineers and what could be done but I have not heard that that's moved anywhere to take action where we're gonna have time enough to deal with these 20.
Just eyeball it, it's like they don't river. That's true. South, they're actually blocks the flow of the water. So maybe getting some culverts through that might be a fairly simple solution.
We did have conversations with the stormwater management and they did not have any easy solution for it.
But I think those, there certainly has to be a buyer for those. I don't know if those good sellers they agree. So. Well, after building it, they're not paying taxes on their own. So they can't tax roll for only 22,000.
They pay pilot.
Well,
They're not tax exempt. They pay pilot.
anyway, the appraisal numbers on fairly 20,000. So
Some of them under 20.
so actually there with the discussion and news report on the condition of the foundations. That's not really that expensive to get in my personal opinion. My experience with this either. Those might do it, for instance, essentially. You don't think so?
Not my discussions with HUD, so. Yeah.
Additional fencing.
I can't answer to the conventional.
And I did want to clarify, just because I know I'm still learning all the different acronyms and things. Pilot is payment in lieu of taxes. So because these would be on the tax rules, except they're government property, then that is a common way of kind of supplementing or within a housing authority operation. I'm still learning as well, so. Any other questions related to these? This has been a good conversation.
Just you might put something together that was funny, shoot it out in the screw. They would come up with some ideas. Yes, creative people. It's just my idea. I'm not familiar with that. Which has more floodplains than most people realize. And so there are a number of houses all over town that are in floodplain. But with this eyeball, it doesn't look like it's been under flood there for a lot of years. So I can't imagine if there's that much foundation damage.
Our capital needs assessment actually did come back and say we have significant structural damage. I'm not on all of them, but on a number of them.
See. Here, this is on.
So I think maybe just for something like this in general, this isn't necessarily on our agenda. If we want to set up, well, if we want to kind of get it on the agenda or just as an option, it's a good time to mention it. This board can also do things like set up working groups or subcommittees on particular issues or groupings if we want to come up. Like this kind of conversation isn't technically a recommendation related to one of the things under the code, but that's why things like subcommittees and working groups are kind of helping on an issue like that. might be useful.
I think this is an opportunity for us to brainstorm.
Well, yeah, and just trying to provide some avenues to do that kind of within our meetings. So that's basically like, yes. For sure. Yeah, no, if you email us, we'll try to get something more on the agenda, like how to maybe have that discussion with us, like, yeah, so.
Okay, we got word that, the slides aren't showing up on the, Teams meeting. Let me test a couple things. Brad, would you be my test subject? Are you seeing the slides at this point, Brad? I think I have the screen share, but wanting to confirm.
Oh, what are you asking, Sal?
Alan?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, Brad.
Okay.
I have no,
I
vi-
just muted one mic. Let's see if it did what we needed it to or not. Would you say something again, Brad?
well, I can't see anything. I can hear the speaker. So I'll catch up when I read the meeting minutes. for the meeting.
Okay. Wonderful, we got it. Thank you. Sarah, we've got some extra feedback. Okay, get back to where we were. Sorry about that. Okay. So would we be ready to move on to the Affordable Housing Fund Program Plan? And so I wanted to first just apologize to you guys for last meeting. I think this is something staff has been deep into for a long time, and so we kind of came in ready and eager, and I was sharing the changes and the updates, but not the foundation of the plan. And so I wanted to step back and try to really walk through page by page what we're looking at within the plan, so that not only you, but anyone who might come back and view this video or otherwise can really understand what's in the plan and substantive components of it. And so I think we had discussed previously just that a lot of this opportunity here came out of the American Rescue Plan Act, which we call ARPA. Originally, it was state and local fiscal recovery funds. So SLFRF, like I said, we like our acronyms here in housing, were allocated to offset COVID impacts. And again, some of this is review, but I think feel like it's helpful to just package it all together for anyone else who is coming back to learn too. And so community engagement found that housing is key for our funding. And so with that, the council allocated $5 million for the creation of the Affordable Housing Fund. This was seen as a once in a generation opportunity to really do quite a bit for both affordable home ownership and quality rental stock within the city of Wichita. And so specifically, the council prioritizes affordable home ownership. So as we began to look into this and what that looks like, given the treasury guidelines for these funds, because these are treasury funds, not HUD funds, we actually found that we were subject to affordability periods for home ownerships of 20 years. And so again, you're looking at if somebody purchases a home, they get those subsidies and those funds. But if they happen to sell at year 15, they may still be underwater in that home, upside down, just because of the requirement to repay the subsidies if it's before year 20. And we felt like that is really not our goal with affordable housing. We don't want people locked in to a unit and not able to pursue opportunity. And so we actually had conversations with nonprofit partners to say, can anybody figure out how to make this work? There were some really good and creative options proposed, but ultimately nothing that was particularly feasible. And so we went back to the drawing board internally, city staff, involving multiple departments, and they were able to identify other qualifying expenses for the original funding. So instead, they were able to swap out and provide those funds without restrictions. So with that new opportunity, since our first plan was proposed, staff have realigned the program options to align with existing programs that we operate. And that is for the purposes of accountability, equity, and monitoring. We don't want to create one program that has all these benefits and another program that is very different and be trying to analyze and compare So one thing that has remained consistent is that the plan still anticipates strategically using public housing units and targeting reinvestment in those surrounding neighborhoods. Targeted reinvestment is one of the key themes to this plan. And the once in a generation opportunity. And so the goal is to improve the quality of existing housing stock while expanding quality affordable housing options and promoting neighborhood stability. And we're going to prioritize projects using the public housing stock within the established central area and qualified census tracts. And so that's where that group one scattered sites, those are just units that really aren't good fits for this plan. That's part of how that decision was made. And so kind of jumping into page by page, and there is a copy of the plan in front of each board member. Reiterate, it's to improve the quality of existing housing stock while expanding quality affordable housing options and promoting neighborhood stability. So the plan creates strategies for accountability for affordable housing outcomes. We don't want to just throw the money into the community. We know it could easily be used, but we want strategy and we want accountability in those dollars. We also, our original hope was that actually the sale of public housing units would pump revenue back into this fund. We are not going to be able to do that, as I said no, but there are some components in the home rehabilitation arena that could cycle some revenue for future opportunities as well. Our focus area deliberately serves Wichita's minority communities. And we know that many of those communities were disproportionately impacted by housing insecurity during the pandemic. Everything about this program was designed for equity. It was designed for inclusivity. And so ranging from board appointees to the frameworks that we'll be reviewing proposals. So we incorporate equity into the policies, program administration, review process, and oversight. And we expect staff to be held accountable for that. We expect the board to be held accountable for that. We ensure that minority developers and contractors can reasonably participate. And decision-making around the project funding will consider impact to minority communities. So within the program plan, the goal is to promote stability in the core area. And so I wanted to give a visual because we've referenced it several times. So you can see generally here kind of left center area. This is Interstate 235. This lower is Pawnee and 31st Street. I believe this is Rock Road on the east and approximately 29th Street to the north. That's considered the established central areas. I believe the bluish gray color is the qualified census tracts. That is actually based on census data and which areas have high concentrations of low and moderate income households. And then you can see also overlaid on this are historical redlined areas where we know that there has been disinvestment and there has been harm done. And so we are really keeping this map in mind in everything we do.
Is that what those red lines are?
Yes. And so the codes are a little small on the screen, but the red is what formerly was coded as hazardous.
Yes.
The yellow is what was formerly coded as definitely declining. And we recognize that those are some of the areas still very much in need of continued investment because of historical decisions that were made. And yeah, I'm always glad to read the legends because they're pretty small on the screen. And so within the program plan, we have stated that affordable housing funds must be accessed by eligible users. And so for development projects, that includes non or for-profit developers. And so I know we did have some questions about eligible users. These funds may not be accessed directly by homeowners or directly by like an individual landlord. We are looking for entities that have experience managing federal programs because there are layering ons that are going to be required with these funds. Anybody could partner with an agency that has this experience. So our goal is not to shut anybody out. And again, part of what I was sharing with the housing groupings is to say that this is not going to impact university. This is going to impact specifically those RFP areas. Yes,
What's to keep a nonprofit or for-profit developer beyond a number of these rentals?
that would actually be in their application. So when they respond to the RFP, the request for proposals, in their proposal, they're going to outline what they plan to do with these. They're going to outline how, like, if they're looking at a cluster or part of a cluster, they might be outlining, we're going to do all rentals. Well, that's actually where we're going to evaluate and say which proposals are most advantageous. These are not just bids where we're looking at the highest price point. These are really about looking at the character and what it is that we're desiring to do in the neighborhoods.
That keeping in mind that the council's priority, our priority is home food. So we will be involved in doing those type of proposals.
Yes,
This is out of our scope,
sure.
but how is it intended to be held accountable after? the programs?
So one of the things, and I'll do more in depth here in a couple slides, but in all of the funding applications, we're requiring them to be paired with programs that have accountability structures in them. So for home ownership, we're requiring the home ownership 80 down payment assistance, which has a 10-year accountability affordability period. For anything rental, there will be a 15-year affordability period. That will be secured either through project-based vouchers or through low-income housing tax credits. And so what we don't want to do is just, the funds by themselves as city funds don't necessarily hold that, but we want to make sure that there is a mechanism so that there is an accountability in the affordability period. So I'll try to address that a little better in a couple slides, and also any questions you have at the end too. So with developers, we're looking for developers with a track record of renovation or rehabilitation or new construction projects within a reasonable timeline. As this was first being developed, we were under very strict federal timelines to have the funds obligated, I think, by the end of 24 and extended by the end of 26. We're not under that same pressure, but we also know that the longer that things go, the more prices rise, the more, so we want to see things proceed in a timely manner. And so we want to see rehabilitation projects done within about a year of contract, new construction within 18 months. And we do want to ensure that any developers are in good standing with existing funding commitments. Any questions on this page?
This expanded home program that we talked about earlier.
I think with our upcoming funding, what we've actually done is, and this is an area I'm not as familiar with as others, but I think that we have expanded how much we're allocating to home ownership 80, so that the resources are there to utilize that program in partnership with this one and to expand it. It has for several years been only for new construction. And so we're actually excited about the opportunity to see it being for both new and rehabilitation. So development types, we have the option of single-family rehabilitation or renovation to modernize existing units. And I will clarify that the first priority here is for the public housing units. Once some of the initial priorities have been considered, then there are other opportunities, but first priority is public housing units. Maximum of 40,000 in funds per unit. And that's, I'm trying to remember, Sally, was that based on capital needs assessments of the existing units?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a max. That doesn't mean that every unit will require that much. And the funds, in this case, these funds may not be combined with other programs that do similar functions. So we don't want to pump 40,000 into a unit from this program and then turn around and also have them apply for HDLP for the same unit. So we've been very clear about which programs must be layered and which programs may not be layered. We also, or I guess with rehab, they can rehab for either sale or for rental. With sale, our standard has been a 0% interest forgivable loan. These are secured with a lien on the property and then forgiven after the assisted household has been in the home for 10 years. And so it's really that home ownership 80 funding that triggers those affordability clauses.
What happens if, for some reason, they don't make it to the 10 years? Let's say the person passes away or there's no heir.
Yeah, I think most of ours,
I
they,
think the portion of the down payment assistance is repayable, not the development subsidy, just like home. So it's only the provision of down payment assistance that comes back. The development subsidy will disappear like it does with the other.
thank you, Sally.
Yep.
And so again, with rental, we want to have them pair it with some sort of mechanism that's at least a 15-year restriction on it. So we are looking at generational preservation of these as affordable units. New construction also is an eligible use. We're looking for applicants that have the capacity to market and sell single-family homes. And so again, you're looking at nonprofit or for-profit developers within that. Applicants must describe their marketing strategies, and that is specifically in terms of how they are going to find qualified buyers who qualify for affordable housing. We do have, the right thing. Okay, and that includes describing the way they intend to market the proposed project, including the way in which potential buyers will be identified, and how the applicant will assist potential buyers in the first mortgage loan qualification process. So we're again holding a very high standard to make sure that anyone who would do new construction with these funds can help that applicant navigate all the way through. And so this is a place where we actually allow a maximum that is slightly higher than other maximums within the program. If somebody is constructing new construction within 0.25 miles of Wichita Housing Authority home that's undergoing renovations, they can actually go $10,000 higher to $50,000. Other construction outside of that area is capped at $40,000. And so then the final component of the plan as it currently stands is home rehabilitation. And so this program is in line with some provisions that we're proposing to our home repair program that is a longstanding existing program in our department. That program is funded with community development block grant funds. This one really targets people within kind of those areas around the current public housing stock or having an impact again. And so with this, it would be a 0% interest loan. What we're doing in home repair and would propose within this is that up to $5,000 would be forgiven after they reside in the home for 5 years. And we do that by a lien on the property. If somebody were to move prior to that time, it would be collected upon sale or transfer of the unit. And I think I'm missing a line here, so my apologies for that. We also would offer up to $20,000 more that would be available for a total of up to $25,000. Now, an applicant would need to provide a 10% match for that second section. So if they use the first $5,000 and then $5,000 more, they would need to match at $500. And we want to see homeowner investment in their homes, even as we're providing assistance to help meet capital needs. So again, this mirrors the home repair program, and the programs may not be combined. We don't want to see somebody 25 from this pot, 25 from that pot, and maximum of $25,000 in affordable housing funds per project.
I want to make sure it's clear with the 5,000 forgiven after residency after 5 years, but then also bounties collected upon sale or transfer. So as long as they live there, you never have to pay it back when they were to sell it.
That's correct. So if somebody were in that home for 15 years and took the maximum of 25,000, basically 5,000 of it would be forgiven because they met the 5-year requirement. And then the remainder would be paid back upon sale or transfer, unless that property transferred to a qualifying first line heir. And if they did, we would basically look at that pair's income to make sure that they're HUD qualified. And that lien would remain on the property and that household could continue to live within that property under that same assistance clause.
This application is open to individuals, not corporate entities. And the application is open right now, so it can go on.
Not yet.
Not yet,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, the plan's still in draft.
And so with home repair, I believe our current proposal would be for the city or city to operate this component of it kind of in the same equitable manner as what we do our home repair program. We considered whether it would be advantageous to have another entity run it. And we said the communication and increased coordination would actually be challenging. What we can do is our home repair program is open citywide. This one would be targeted. And so we might really kind of funnel people toward which funding mechanism better fits their location and their needs picture. But the programs are functionally,
Both programs offer the same max.
yes. Same max, same forgiveness periods, same clauses, and we did that very intentionally. And so, yes, this would be one where there could be direct access, and I think what we ultimately would do in terms of just transparency and things is we're not going to bring individual by individual to the board. What we would probably, as the housing department, bring a proposal for funding for this part of the project to the board. And then we would bring accountability measures in terms of reporting on how many projects had been completed, average price points, types of projects and things. And so that still offers a buffer so that we're not putting individual homeowners' names on agendas, but it also offers the transparency for the board to see how things have been utilized. And so beneficiaries, and we wanted to clarify, and this is in the plan as well, that basically low and moderate income households can access programming through developers. And that is similar to how the Home 80 program currently operates. And so each program has slightly different affordability requirements. And this is, again, equitable with existing programs. For the home ownership 80 for sale, we're looking at adjusted gross income or at or below 80% of area median income. We didn't get into our acronym. I think the first meeting I had shared a page that had what these different income thresholds looked like. But basically with ownership, it's up to 8%. With rental, I believe light tech credits can be used for people who are up to 60% of area median income, and project-based vouchers, you can qualify if you're up to 50%. And then with home repair, our current threshold is at 60% of area median income. And the differences there is that we look at extremely low, or moderate in terms of where people fall. There's a fourth criteria that's not reflected here that is 30%, and that's considered extremely low. But many of these really target both low and moderate income households. We do require conflict of interest affidavits. That's something very important. Anytime you have public funding involved, we want to make sure that these are truly fair processes in terms of how we're finding buyers and who is benefiting from it. And all income review is subject to the current year's income limits. Okay, and so I've referenced a couple times the Wichita Housing Authority homes. And so look here, high concentration of housing authority homes in this area. And again, that is what we're proposing the first round of targeted investment for group 2, along with down in this area. I think earlier there was a question on the South City homes. And house. I think that is this cluster down here, but they are slightly outside of the established central area. And so first priority is going to be looking at what concentrated targeted investment looks like and leveraging the public housing stock. And then beyond that, we would look at proposals that focus within those areas. So as outlined already, deed restriction agreements will be filed. Step back for just a moment. Okay, so deed restriction agreements will be filed against properties acquired by development entities from the Wichita Housing Authority. And so that way, that's another way that we're ensuring that there is affordable housing from those housing units going forward. And again, anything that has financing will be filed in deed restrictions. And so we can monitor those. We can follow up in future years and ensure that those are still being used as intended. And that helps to ensure project completion, compliance, and the long-term affordability. So I think getting about to the end, thank you. So here is where the board's work will come in terms of probably building rubrics and really looking at what are we going to prioritize. And that's going to be projects that utilize current Wichita Housing Authority homes or within a quarter mile of those homes. Home projects that are located within formerly redlined neighborhoods, things that support sustainable homeownership. We want to look at what's leveraging other approved funding sources within those areas where other funding is required. We'd like to see projects where there's already ownership or site control in place. So, for example, if a developer has a site within a qualifying area, we would potentially prioritize that above a developer that's just speculating on potential sites. Looking at proposals that are developed by disadvantaged business enterprises, and we do track those through our city's purchasing department. And we're also looking at holistic approaches. We don't want to see something that is functionally beautiful, but doesn't have systems updated in the process. So the request for proposals, basically it will be a competitive process. We know that 5 million is a large number in many ways, but it will go very quickly for getting the work we're doing. Developers may also use that same request for proposal process to request subsidy. And so I think that was a clarification to a question earlier. So somebody might propose, I'd like to buy these 10 addresses, 7 of them are for ownership, 3 are for rental, and I'd like to request 350,000 in AHF subsidy broken down by unit. So that might be what those look like as we're evaluating. Similarly, they would need to request the project-based vouchers and rental projects, and then also include particulars on which properties they're looking for. And so the review process basically starts with the submission of the proposal. Staff will review to make sure it's complete. We'll provide analysis, and some of that, as we get into reviewing the HTLP proposals, we'll be able to develop what are you looking for in our analysis, so we can try to answer your questions every single time and in a uniform manner. We'll be doing, again, the cursory environmental reviews in-house. We'll bring it to this board for review and recommendation. And when we say recommendation, that can be recommending to fund or not to fund any particular project. And then those recommendations will progress to the Wichita City Council for their final approval or not. And with that, that is the end of the program plan. So I hope that that provides a better overview of what we're looking at. And with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions. Thank you. And I'll give credit to Sally and Logan. They worked on it long before I did. Yes, John.
I mentioned in our last meeting of doing some collaboration with some other groups, with the Land Bank, as well as the ABCD, housing compliance people. Maybe instead of bulldozing houses, so we could be helping people rehabilitating, saving for low cost, affordable entry level houses. I really encourage us to do some of the collaboration very soon.
And I think that is certainly conversations that we're having with the land bank as well. I was going to share another business that I'll share now. Actually, at our last land bank meeting, and you were there, I think, we discussed the fact that really the Land Bank Board of Trustees has said, you know, we know what we're working on with this project, but we want to know what else is available. We want to know what other, like, what else can we mesh with within the programs? And so we had proposed, and we don't have dates yet, but doing a joint workshop between this board and the Wichita Land Bank Board of Trustees, and really doing what I would like to call the toolbox presentation. You guys are getting a broader view of the toolbox because what we're doing here is designed to be similar to other programs that we already have. But really, it's an amazing continuum of tools that we're equipped with. And part of the challenge and part of the fun is learning which tools fit which scenarios best. What I'd like to do is to have basically kind of start with the high level economic development view, including tools that are outside of housing, and then kind of bring it down into what do we have for homeowners? What do we have for renters? What do we have for people of different income levels? Because the Affordable Housing Fund hits a number of those, but it's different programs are really targeted to different people. So with your blessing, I would like to coordinate that date with our chairs, our land bank chair, and then our chair of this board. And I'm tentatively looking toward October just to make sure that we have time as staff to really make it a meaningful event. And it would also be something where we would, because it's two boards meeting, it would be an open meeting. It might be one that media would find very interesting to learn from, or, you know, anybody who is generally interested in housing and housing development. Thank you for bringing that up. Did you have something, Brad?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Other questions or yes? Mhm.
And I'm sure it's evident, but I just need to hear it, I guess. If we make a recommendation to accept or not, we have to collectively come up with the reason why. For each.
You know,
You mean when we bring proposals?
Right.
I thought you were talking about the plan.
No.
Yes,
And we say yes or no, do we have to collectively?
it's gonna be a vote. It doesn't have to be
Okay,
unanimous,
so we don't have to give a reason why we vote that way.
not necessarily,
Okay,
right? You're just gonna take a vote and it's gonna be brought to the council to say that the board approved or denied at this vote.
okay.
I mean, you could provide them.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Just, yeah, recommendation can be pretty broad, so you can say recommend with these ideas and, or this is what we would maybe add or subtract, or we're denying unless we do this kind of thing. That's our recommendation. All of have been very impressed with the minutes generally here, and those are also forwarded to council. So that type of discussion goes before them and is for their consideration as well.
and so for example, if you were to deny a proposal, it could be that council members, you know, see that as the recommended is that to deny, and then they might read through those minutes from that meeting, which would be packaged in their agenda item. And so they would have a sense of the discussion and what had led up to it. I mean, we could recommend approval or denial on as close as a 4-3 vote. And so I think, you know, all of that, council members would have that background information as they make their final decisions.
Okay.
You might recommend something that they then deny, you might deny something that they then approve. So it could go a lot of different directions, but this board is really the one that gets deep in the details of the proposal and then speaks as a board to recommend or deny through that vote. I know that's been a lot. And so we had delayed a month on bringing this back in part because we wanted to, the board had asked for more information on it. What we would like to ask of this board is to go ahead and have this progress to council. council is eager to see it come across. And so our staff recommendation, and this will be standard practice. You don't always have to go with staff recommendation, but we will always issue a recommendation. And it could be that we recommend not to approve something or to approve. So our staff recommendation today would be to recommend the Affordable Housing Fund Program Plan for approval and adoption by the city council.
I think one of the things that we discussed in the minutes, proving the minutes, there were some concerns about that had to be through profit, not profit entities instead of direct. I still have some concern with that. I also have the concern with the two or three residential rehabilitation laws that had offers that hasn't been mentioned, and I think that's a possibility. Some of these, and maybe, and what I'm saying that maybe we can expand some of this that we talked about, the selling some of these through the bulk listing service. And that's something that's not being considered at all.
Not on the group of 37, because we would have to kick that application back to HUD after it took 7 months to get approved. And that's not something we want to entertain at this point. But if you notice, we did actually provide in there that said that a priority we'd be looking at is a project that leverages other funds, such as the loan funds that you're talking about. That's exactly what, there's nothing in here that says that a project can't come forward with those other resources. We actually encourage it. It actually lets them score better.
Basically, it's really, it looks like you're very locked in.
No,
On the partnership.
That's what this is. This is what we're talking about.
yes,
Yeah. This is probably had problems with that that's been not very big to access by homeowners.
correct.
That's probably.
A homeowner would not have the necessary capacity and experience normally, right?
Except for 203K residential rehabilitation.
I'm not talking the financing, I'm talking about the construction, development knowledge, the requirement, because these are going to be layered with other federal funds, the knowledge and experience of what has to be done related to, in some cases, Section 3 and things bacon and all those sort of things. A homeowner that would qualify to be able to do for this program is not likely to have the experience that would be necessary. And you open that can up, you're going to get 1,000 applications for you to review that do not necessarily have what you're looking for. And we're only talking, and that's only for the 66 that are under RFP, right? Any homeowner could bid on the 37 or potentially the next 51 or the 69 thereafter. This restriction is only on the Affordable Housing Fund where they're being layered in with the purchase under the RFP. If that helps. Yeah.
Excuse me, this is Brad.
Brad,
I'd like to make a motion to go with the staff recommendation to recommend the Affordable Housing Fund Program Plan for approval and adoption by the City Council as it is written.
So all in favor, raise your hand. Brad, if you would say yes. Okay, we've got 5, all opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes 6-1.
5.
I'm sorry, 5-1, thank you. I'm counting our board member who's not here. Thank you.
Thanks.
And so from here, this will go forward to council. Again, we'll package at this point, probably draft minutes from this meeting, and those will also move forward with the proposal. And so the discussion will be available to council members to understand what has been shared, the concerns, as well as the support. So thank you guys very much for enduring the long conversation and for great questions. And so I think the other thing we had is that we've had a couple questions and things on open meetings and conflict of interest. I know we've overviewed these at our first meeting, but it's also as we get into actually working, we wanted to take a moment and just clarify. And so Nate was going to share just a little bit more on that. And this is also an opportunity to ask any questions that you have related to either of those.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this somewhat quick and just focus on kind of a couple topics that come up under each one as this board is at. And this board's a little different than others, again, as we highlighted that you've started to see as we bring up conflicts of interest pretty regularly. There's financial interest involved with board members kind of in your field, in your industry, all that sort of stuff, that maybe isn't the same on like the park board that I work with. So just need to be a little bit more careful about some things, then some issues with open meetings, especially as you all are very just active in the world and see each other and talk and stuff like that. So first on open meetings, the one thing I just really like to emphasize as things get going is that we're just an advisory board. It's like pretty significant work that's being done. Council very seriously considers the recommendations because that's really important work in the decision-making process. It is just like council subject to the Open Meetings Act under Kansas state law. The big thing like I said, wanted to mention was the serial communications idea. So it does become a little bit tricky, like how do I talk to other board members about an issue that might be coming before the board? And it might be good to have conversations to develop our own knowledge, to maybe get a sense of what other people are thinking and what we'd like to do. All of that is important stuff, but it also has to be balanced against the interests of the Kansas Open Meetings Act of making sure everything is transparent as possible for public consideration. So even if it takes a little longer at the meetings, maybe just try to add our conversation here and have that conversation in this room as much as possible. Now, we can talk to other people on the board. It's just if you talk to maybe 2 or 3 people on the board, even at a different time, that becomes a serial communication. The conversation, as long as it's about the same topic and it's about the same kind of thing that could be coming before the board, could sort of qualify as a meeting. It's like more than a quorum is talking about something that could come before. Now, at the same time, this board does have a somewhat specific obligation of recommending applications under very specific plans or under very specific programs. So in a way, if we're not talking about the applications, even discussion of the floodplain, that's kind of why I noted a little bit that that's not necessarily something that's specifically within the duties of this board. So it is something I would think maybe you could have more of a conversation amongst yourselves about. But that's a good example too, because it shows the really fine line between those things. And we just need to be careful when we're talking to other people on the board about what we're talking about. And if any question comes up, really, I know it's super awkward, but maybe just like pause the conversation or whatever and be like, I just gotta email annoying me about whatever and just like do that. That'll be fine. So it's just better to do it that way because civil penalties, fines, stuff like that, they're not common or whatever under the Open Meetings Act, but they exist. And just getting a letter from the AG's office about something is never fun either. So it's just like nice to probably just avoid that sort of thing too. Again, open meetings, just asking questions, but that's really the main one and why I wanted to emphasize it. Serial communications comes up all the time, especially in the digital world. So it's just something to be careful of, and I wanted and take the opportunity to emphasize again. Another one to talk about is conflicts of interest under our ethics policy. Again, while an advisory board or whatever, it's still subject to city council policies governing ethics and conflicts of interest. Same thing that applies to city officials at the city council level, any board that operates in the city. We talked a lot about kind of thinking about what financial interests we might have that could come before this board. Do I have some interest in an entity that's applying for one of these funds? If that's the case, that's pretty straightforward. Let us know. You'll probably not be able to vote or engage in consideration of that application. That's going to happen though. We're totally prepared for that. Just let us know, recuse yourself from the discussion. That's kind of our basic understanding of ethics policy. There are a few other things that we've seen potentially come up that we do want to be careful about. And one that might come up is kind of talking about your position on the board while also like working in your job. So it's like you mentioned that you're on the board and then also you're working on stuff that might also impact your business or something like that. What I just recommend is if you're going to post about your business or about your financial interests, try to keep that separate from posts that also reference that you're on the board. It's a super fine line because it's like, oh, my business wants to like, congratulate me or whatever on being on the board. That's the fine line, right? We want to do something like that. But if we start tying it a little closer together, it's like, I know the application process because I'm on the board. It's like, I know how to connect you. Again, you've got an obligation to share information, to bring people to the board, to bring applicants to the board. But when we share that information with information about our financial interests, our business, it starts to just be a little fuzzy. So really, this is going to be a touchy line, not like really, not touchy in that we're all at risk or anything, but just it's going to be a fuzzy line that's a little difficult to figure out. Again, this is a unique board. Please just send any questions our way so we can provide as best advice as possible. There's an ethics advisory board that can look at things like a complaints file. There's technically some fines that could exist and risk of censure too. And again, I don't even know a situation where it's happened under the ethics policy yet. I've only been here a year or so that's not a ton of experience, but it doesn't happen all the time. We just want to avoid that risk. And with more money before the board comes potentially more public scrutiny as well. So that's just something to consider and something we just want to be aware of. Please, we're here all day. It's our job. So just please ask us questions and be happy to help out. We just appreciate you checking.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I just want to get some clarity because of my role, I try to be a resource to investors and as well as aspiring homeowners. So then it makes it like, I might go nervous with you saying that because I have shared, well, with my role here, I have access to information about the different programs that I can feed and place.
And something we do with other officials, and we don't necessarily, again, do this with other board members per se. But something that might be useful is even just like maybe creating like a separate account that's specific to your board, or kind of like how public officials have, or elected officials have one that's specific for their campaign or for their work with the city versus their personal private account. I know it's kind of an extreme measure. I think in term, it's kind of just keep the content as separate as possible. And if we start having more issues, maybe we can talk about the separate accounts sort of idea. But again, it's like, we don't want to totally impose on your lives or anything. We want to navigate these conflicts as effectively as we can. I don't think we have any big issue yet. It's just trying to keep the content of providing that information separate from promoting your business at the same time, for any interest at the same time. And really though, it's gonna be a fine line, like really. So please reach out if you have like a question, and maybe we can just having some advice on the table is good too for our process in the city. So thank you for that.
My professional bio with my brokerage, I actually had put a little blurb in there at the end of it, more for the goal of supporting my community via affordable and stable housing stability. Do I need to take that?
No, and that's totally
Because
fine.
it's not, oh, buy a house for me, I'm on the budget. It was more just to show community service as part of my bio. But now you've got me thinking.
No, and that's totally fine. Again, appreciate the question. It's kind of like, we understand that you as people want to say you're on the board, and it's like that work in this field, and we really appreciate that, for sure. It's just kind of, again, it's that really fuzzy line that we're gonna run into every once in a while of, sometimes we just don't want to tie that closely to promoting my homes or something like that. I think you're exactly right. Your instinct there is exactly right, but it's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like, you can tell people you're on board. It's like, that's all public information too. It's just, yeah, we'll just kind of navigate that as we go. We appreciate you all. Again, I said this a lot, but working with us is kind of the new type of board to get some of these protocols in place. So thank you.
And again, like you said, we're here all day, so we are glad to help with any questions. So if you have a question pop up, then, email me, I'll reach out to Nate, we'll get an answer as quickly as we can.
So if we have a question or issue that whatever one on the board to go outside of it, we just bring those to you. Let's use that.
Like a question that would potentially deal with a future business item. Yeah, I think as long as it, like, as staff, I can send things out. And so a part of that is because there are many instances where we need the board to be informed. One thing you'll see from me. No, But
Exactly, that's exactly right. Under the open meetings, Act, I think what you're suggesting is generally right. Please send stuff to Sarah so she can contact the board. Technically, under the Open Meetings Act, you can send information to each other. It should be an interactive discussion, but that's, I hesitate to even say that because we're really like close to the line at that point. I think your idea is perfect. Just, we can send it to Sarah and then share it with her.
Right.
Yep.
Telephone.
Yeah, and you're right, staff is not subject to the Kansas Open Meetings Act, it's the board and board. Yeah.
But what you won't see from me is perpetuating. If somebody hits reply all,
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn around and reply back to just that person.
What they're.
It's really easy
Never
to
has.
do. And often it's in coordinating. Yeah, I'm a big, but,
It's like perfect copies.
Yeah.
and again, we're here to help navigate, to help, we are your resource in this. So I had a really good conversation with our chair between meetings about, how we intend to resource him for his role. And you'll see in our agendas that I try to, resource early on, what's going to be in that agenda. And so again, we can answer questions and we can try to help vet any situations that could get sticky before that happens.
Yes, it's typical to have a chair that's usually online,
He's not online.
or
Yeah, he's just
We
missing.
had a conflict today.
No, but that's something, yes, that we do need to kind of figure out, discuss and appreciate, vice chair kind of
Yes.
running things and navigating. But yes, that's a discussion we'll have some options. That's for sure, yes. Because we haven't been for the whole time anyway.
And he has indicated he does intend to be in person.
Yes.
okay.
So are we moving on to other business discussion at this time?
I think we are.
I'll do any board members have any additional business or items for discussion?
I move adjourn.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
We have it.
No, yeah, just a second. We'll be technical.
All set?
Second.
Please raise your hand.
All in favor of adjourning? Anyone opposed?
Hi,
Thank you, Brad.
you're welcome. So when did you say the new sound system was going to be installed?
It's doing good, man.
We are working with an interim sound system. We will have the fully installed new sound system here at our next meeting, but I hope this has been a little bit better for everybody today.
All right, see you guys.